Welcome once again to a new episode of Coffee and Voltaire. In this episode, we're going to talk about the ultimate artifact of human creation, the Golden Throne. We wanted to bring this topic to Coffee and Voltaire because honestly, the Golden Throne is central to much of the lore. To all the background of Warhammer, 40,000. In fact, let me warn you now, this video contains spoilers, so if you haven't read the Heresy novels, especially the later ones and so on, don't watch this video because it contains spoilers, and we're going to reveal quite a bit, but it's necessary. Since much of the topic of the Golden Throne is obviously tied to the Horus Heresy, so let's get started. Today we're bringing you the story of an artifact known to everyone, the Golden Throne. The Golden Throne is a colossal cybernetic life support mechanism that uses biomechanical technology, both ancient and advanced, inherited from the Dark Age of technology. It also has the ability to massively amplify psychic powers and allow access to the Eldar Webway. The throne was modified by the ancient Mechanicum. Note, Mechanicum, not Mechanicus. They're not the same. It's called Mechanicum during the Heresy, Mechanicus in 40,000, under the direction of the Emperor of Mankind after the end of the Siege of Terra. And now it sustains the vital functions of his mortally wounded body. Even as his physical form, slowly corroded by death, lies motionless within the Golden Throne, his mind remains fully active in the warp. From there, he directs the Astronomican Beacon, which makes interstellar travel through the warp possible within the Imperium of Mankind. And he fights against the enemies of humanity. In the Immaterium, those who would dare to break through the psychic walls that protect the Imperial Palace. The Golden Throne is located on Terra, deep within the continental complex of the Imperial Palace, specifically in a region of the Asian continent where the Himalayan mountains once stood. It is located in an underground chamber at the heart of the Imperial Palace, the so-called Sanctum Imperialis, built beneath it. What was once Mount Everest. It is a colossal and baroque life support system. It sustains the vital functions of the Emperor's nearly comatose body after his mortal wound at the end of the Horus Heresy. As the end of the 41st millennium approaches, around the year 999, during what many pessimistic imperial historians would begin to call the time of the end of the Imperium, the tech priests, in horror, observe that the mechanisms of the Golden Throne are slowly failing, and that they lack the knowledge to repair its arcane technology. This is what is called a moof. If nothing is done, the life support systems of the Golden Throne will fail. Eventually, the Emperor of Mankind will die, surrendering his soul to the warp and plunging all of humanity once again into darkness. Or perhaps setting the stage for its final salvation. Alright, there's a problem with this whole thing about the Emperor. In the end, having his soul go to the warp and dying, so to speak. And that's what makes the Imperium logistically viable is the Astronomicon. The beacon that the astropaths use to navigate through the warp is provided by the Emperor. If the Emperor dies, that entire beacon and all travel through the warp would end up in chaos. But let's go back to the beginning of the story. The project of the Imperial Webway. The core of the artifact that would become the Golden Throne, whose exact origin in the Dark Age of technology remains unknown, was discovered by the Emperor at some point in the 30th millennium during the Unification Wars of Terra. Buried deep within the submerged ruins beneath a vast and desolate desert of the Asian continent. This happened before the construction of the Imperial Palace complex in the Himalayas, although the exact date is unknown. Another similar device, probably used to test the technology implemented in the Golden Throne and known as Dark Glass, was also found by the Emperor during the Great Crusade, something I was unaware of. The original use that the Emperor found for the Golden Throne, or for the core that would later be built around it, was that of a powerful psychic amplifier, in addition to serving as a portal to the labyrinthine dimension of the Webway based on Terra. Before the outbreak of the Horus Heresy, in the early years of the 31st millennium, the Emperor had directed tens of thousands of Mechanicum priests and Terran workers to modify the throne so that it could be used as the nexus of his secret Imperial Webway project. This project aimed to open the Eldar webway to humanity, establishing a portal from Terra to the vast galactic network. This would allow for instantaneous interstellar travel between the worlds of the nascent Imperium of humanity, eliminating the dangers of the warp and literally connecting all human worlds instantly. If you think about the movie and series Stargate, it's basically the same thing. In this way, a truly unified human race would be created, something that had never existed before in history. The Emperor believed that such a level of unity would be necessary for humanity to thrive in such a dangerous universe. Furthermore, the ability to travel and communicate across, thanks to the galaxy using the webway. Instead of the warp, it would allow humanity to do away with psychics entirely, including navigators and astropaths. Humanity would no longer have to face the dangers of warp entities or travel through the Immaterium. The human population of the Imperium could then be screened using devices the Emperor was building called Oculum test stations. These would identify latent psychic genes in the population, allowing the Emperor's advanced genetic science to eliminate psychic mutation and completely suppress psychic powers in humanity. Alternatively, if humanity were to evolve into a fully psychic species, like the Eldar, they could be kept safe within the confines of the webway, psychically protected from all entities of the Immaterium. In any case, this outcome would forever end the demonic possession of weak-willed psykers and drastically reduce Chaos's ability to corrupt its human pawns. The Emperor believed that the Golden Throne and the webway it unlocked offered his species the best chance to free themselves forever from the dangers of the ruinous powers. Once installed beneath the Imperial Palace in the Emperor's main laboratory known as the Sanctum Imperialis, the Golden Throne took the form of a monstrously mechanical chair. We've all seen the image from the heresy books where the Emperor is shown sitting on his golden throne. This golden throne was a mechanical monstrosity suspended above gigantic mechanized doors of golden alloy, which served as a portal to the expanse of the Imperial webway. It was said that these doors were large enough for a Warhound-class scout titan to pass through without having to stoop. The chair was connected to the portal by enormous bundles of cables, conduits, and pipelines. The entire apparatus was made from the same golden metal, and the throne was built at one end of a vast hall, large enough to accommodate 5 or 6 full companies of space marines. Even after the construction of the Golden Throne, the laboratory remained filled with other machines of unknown origin and storage crates. Hundreds of Mechanicum technicians in red robes and laborers from the Nectar Concilium worked in the dungeon. According to Peter Achillier, the Golden Throne had required an extremely powerful psyker to operate it. He even hinted that one of the Primarchs might have originally been created to fulfill this role, mind you, allowing the Emperor to attend to the duties of ruling the Imperium. The Emperor's deep disappointment at Magnus's betrayal, the Red during the Horus heresy, and his inability to understand the true dangers of dealing with entities from the warp, suggests that the Primarch of the Thousand Suns had been intended by the Emperor to sit on the throne in his place. The armies of tech priests from the Mechanicum and laborers sent through the portal beneath the Golden Throne were building the Imperial Webway towards the Art. The Imperial Webway, they built a new extension of the network connecting Terra with the rest of the abandoned Eldar labyrinth. Since the original webway had been built with a psychically resistant material that humans could not replicate, the Emperor used his own psychic power, projected and amplified through the Golden Throne, to protect the human extension from demonic incursions from the warp. Due to the sensitivity of the project, the threat that it posed for Chaos, and the fears about how the powerful navigators of the fleet would react. Since their monopoly over interstellar travel would be nullified, the Emperor kept the construction of the Golden Throne and the Imperial Webway a secret, even from his own genetic sons, the Primarchs, and his regent, Malcador the Sigillite. Let us now go to just before the Horus heresy, when the seeds of heresy were sown. A little more, About 2 standard centuries after the start of the Great Crusade, following the Ulanor Crusade, the Emperor of Mankind decided to leave direct command of military affairs to his sons, the Primarchs, and return to Terra to oversee the construction of an administrative apparatus capable of governing the very new interstellar empire he had created. He also personally took on the modifications to the Golden Throne and the creation of the Imperial Webway with renewed dedication. The entire project was maintained under absolute secrecy, and not even the Primarchs had any idea what the Emperor was doing in the solitude of his underground laboratories beneath the Imperial Palace. This secrecy would deeply wound many Primarchs and create a resentment that would later be exploited by the dark gods of chaos. Malcador the Sigillite, the Emperor's most trusted advisor, was appointed Regent of Terra and the First Lord of the Council of Terra. He was tasked with leading it in the Emperor's absence. Also appointed were the Fabricator General of the Mechanicum, Kelbor Hael, whom we've already discussed here before, the Chief Custodian of the Custodes Legion, who was of course Constantine Valdor, and the leaders of the Astra Telepathica and the administrative divisions of the Imperium. With the new governing body established, the Emperor withdrew to his private underground chambers beneath the Imperial Palace to complete his secret project. But while he worked in the labyrinth of machinery and golden cables, political dissent was beginning to brew on the surface. Meanwhile, Horus, already appointed as the War Master of the Imperium, enthusiastically took on his new duties, but secretly he felt frustrated. The Emperor would no longer fight by his side, and the formation of the Council of Terra had left him dissatisfied and jealous. The other Primarchs were also horrified by the news of the Council's formation. Their most loyal followers felt betrayed by their father. Some Primarchs, particularly the most egocentric ones, felt that the Emperor had turned his back on them by entrusting power to mere mortals and the servile tech priests of Mars. These resentments would be exploited by the Chaos Gods, who would succeed in luring Horus and 8 of his Primarch brothers into betrayal, thus unleashing the terrible interstellar civil war known as the Horus Heresy, in which Horus himself sought to overthrow and replace his own father. We continue with the Horus Heresy and the war within the Webway. When the Horus Heresy broke out, after long months without contact with the Emperor, Malcador and Rogal Dorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, finally managed to secure an audience with the Master of Mankind. The moment was critical. News of the massacre at Istvan V was arriving, and Horus's threat was drawing closer to Terra. The Emperor revealed the Imperial Webway project to his loyal followers, explaining that this new extension, controlled by humanity, would recreate the vast network of portals, gateways that once connected the ancient interstellar empires of the Eldar, allowing humanity to advance at an unprecedented scientific and economic pace. A webway dominated by humans would truly unite the Imperium, preventing humanity from being divided again by time or distance. Furthermore, it would protect humanity from the gods, from chaos, by eliminating or shielding its psykers. However, the warp portal built by the Emperor and the short section of the Imperial Webway, they required a constant expenditure of his psychic power to prevent entities from the warp from entering. At first, this demanded only a fraction of his power. But as time went on, the monsters that ruled the Immaterium, the self-proclaimed gods of chaos, could enter the Webway and destroy the Imperium from within. To sabotage it, all of the plan, they tempted Magnus the Red with a vision that was meant to warn the Emperor about Horus's betrayal. Magnus's psychic ritual, performed with other sorcerers of the Thousand Sons of, destroyed the delicate psychic shields of the Imperial Webway, allowing demons to break into the newly constructed human section. Thousands of Mechanicum workers were massacred. Meanwhile, the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence fought a desperate battle to prevent the demons from reaching the portal and breaking into Terra. A critical moment occurred when a bloodthirster of Khorne, the greatest of the demons, forced its way toward the portal. Only the intervention of Sister Celia Aroda of the Sisters of Silence managed to stop it. With her ice sword, Celia defeated the monster, exhausting her own life in the process, collapsing on the threshold between the warp and the real space of Terra. Her death was just one of many heroic sacrifices made in defense of the human extension of the webway. Finally, the defenders regrouped near the Golden Throne, where the Emperor's psychic power, projected like a brilliant star through the alien conduits, gave them the respite they needed to retreat to the Imperial Palace. Only a psyker of immeasurable power could keep the portal to the Immaterium closed, and only the Emperor could maintain it permanently. Without his intervention, a gateway to the warp would open, flooding Terra with the legions of demonic forces from the ruinous powers. Later on, the Primarch Vulcan would install the Talisman of the Seven Hammers, an emergency device that would destroy not only the Imperial Palace, but all of Terra. If the Golden Throne were to fail, it would prevent the forces of chaos from taking the throne world and corrupting the heart of the Imperium. In the final moments of the Horus heresy, we have the sacrifice of Malcador. Just before Horus's final assault on the solar system and the siege of Terra, 9 years after the initial betrayal at Istvan, Malcador returned from his mission to recruit the first 12 members of what would later become the Imperial Inquisition. Only through his masterful psychic subterfuge were Malcador and his recruits able to slip through enemy lines undetected, reaching the Emperor in the inner sanctum of the Imperial Palace. The call had come. Malcador was to perform his final duty for the man he had served all his life. Time was critical. Horus knew that more loyal legions were on their way and sought to force a confrontation with the Emperor, compelling him to act hastily. The Emperor instructed Malcador to take his place on the Golden Throne while he faced Horus. The original choice, of course, had been Magnus the Red, but the betrayal of the Thousand Sons and his alliance with Tzeentch ruled him out. Malcador was now the only human psyker with enough power to protect Terra from the demonic hordes waiting behind the portal of the Imperial Webway. Malcador ascended to the throne, surrounded by 12 chosen ones, 4 of them mortal administrators of the Imperium and 8 Astartes warriors, whose loyalty had never wavered, even in legions that had embraced the darkness of Horus. There, Malcador faced the psychic storm that kept the demons at bay. Although powerful, his human mind could not compare to that of the Emperor. Each moment drained his strength. His body and soul were consumed by the pressure of maintaining the psychic barrier that kept Terra safe. Now, let's see how the Emperor ascended to the Golden Throne. During the climax of the Siege of Terra, Horus lowered the void shields of his ship. Insignia, the Spirit of Vengeance. As in this story, we all know it. Issuing a personal challenge, the Emperor responded by leading his elites, the Custodes, the Primarchs, Sanguinius and Dorn, and a select company of the Imperial Fists and Blood Angels. After titanic battles aboard the Spirit of Vengeance, the Emperor defeated Horus, but his mortal body was gravely wounded. Rogel Dorn carried the dying Emperor back to the Golden Throne, finding Malcador consumed by psychic energy, nearly dead as the tech priests worked to adapt the machine to the Emperor's vital functions. In a final act of supreme loyalty, Malcador gave his last vestige of power to revive the Emperor, long enough to give final orders to his servants, including the Primarchs Dorn and Jahatai Khan. Thus, the Golden Throne became a prison, a war machine, and a divine altar, feeding its own power with the sacrifices of the Imperium's psykers, while the Emperor protects Terra and humanity. Invisible yet omnipotent. The Golden Throne and its insatiable hunger. By the year 989 of the 36th millennium, the High Priests, who maintained the Golden Throne could no longer sustain the demand for the necessary psychic power. The Eye of Terror and other rifts in the Immaterium were visibly expanding, and the machine demanded a constant flow of psykers to feed the Emperor's energy and maintain the Astronomicon. That's why we've said before that if the Astronomicon falls, the Imperium falls. The black ships multiplied their journeys, seizing innocents daily. They were sacrificed. 4 times more psykers than in the early days of the Ascension. Each soul consumed reinforced the barrier that kept humanity standing, a terrible and constant price for the survival of millions. The Golden Throne not only preserves the Emperor, but also feeds his power, ensuring that humanity can withstand the horrors of the Immaterium. Each psyker absorbed was turned into pure energy, a silent and anonymous sacrifice that kept demons and the ruinous powers at bay. Today, in the 41st millennium, the throne functions as a complex life support machine, preserving a desiccated and decaying body, while the emperor's mind continues to guide the light of the Astronomicon. His power holds back the forces of chaos, ensuring that humanity can flourish even if only in a universe that grows darker around them. It is not clear whether the emperor protects humans from the powers of chaos, thanks to the ancient webway or to the Golden Throne itself. Perhaps, like the ruinous powers themselves, they were shaped by the collective beliefs and fears of humanity and other psychic races. The faith of the Imperium in the Emperor is what truly fuels his psychic strength within the warp. Only a privileged few see the Golden Throne in person. Most of those who behold it are consumed by its mechanisms because they are psychers. Or they are part of the Custodes, transhuman warriors, even more powerful than the Adeptus Astartes, tasked with protecting the Emperor's body. The Astronomicon requires daily sacrifices, and the tireless priests face an increasingly difficult task. The mechanisms of the throne over the millennia have begun to fail, beyond the repair capabilities of current Imperial technology. Each potential failure threatens the Emperor's death and the opening of a permanent portal to the Immaterium, flooding Terra with demonic legions. Because of this problem, expeditions have been sent out by the Mechanicus in search of solutions. Mechanicus, this time because we are in the 41st millennium, launching multiple expeditions, searching for answers and lost technology to sustain the Emperor. Among them, an expedition led by the Shield Captain. Badrian headed to the Lost Forge of Morkbane, facing unimaginable horrors in search of salvation for the machine that sustains all of humanity. The Golden Throne does not sleep, does not yield, does not rest. Its hunger is eternal, and with every soul consumed, the Imperium endures. But each sacrifice is a reminder of the price of ascension and the endless struggle the Emperor wages from his golden prison, holding humanity in an impossible balance between life and the abyss.